Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We'll begin the 7 o'clock hearing of the Milton Board of Appeals. My name is Jeffrey Mullen. I'll be serving as the acting chairperson for the board tonight. With me is Nicholas Gray and Michael Brown, both of whom are board members. We have tonight at 7 o'clock, we'll hear the application of Gregory and Diane Connor through their attorney, Marion McKettrick, at 4 Stoddard Lane. Upon the application of dated March 18, 2024, seeking a variance to build an addition on the rear of the existing structure. The property is located in a Residence C zoning district. This addition would be built a distance of 9.6 feet from the rear yard setback when 20.1 feet are normally required by Article X, Section 275-10.4 of the Milton zoning bylaw. All is set forth in the board's file and open to public inspection at the board's office at Town Hall. I see that the applicant has joined us along with his attorney who was here, but I don't see her now. Do you guys see her?
No, she
I
must
don't.
have dropped off.
Why don't we hold on? Why don't we hold on a minute? Just a minute, maybe.
Thank you.
She wouldn't leave Mr. Connor alone to face the Board of Appeals all by himself, I'm sure.
I hope not.
Must be a web problem. I think this happened previously.
Michael Brown, are you new to the town meeting or was it a re-election effort?
It was a re-election. And I don't
No.
think I was really running against anybody, so it was kind of a hollow victory, but an honor nonetheless.
And Marion is back.
I see that.
Okay, sorry about
Attorney
that. I had to
McKettrick-
sign in again. I don't know what happened.
I don't know when we lost you, Marion, but I read the application, introduced myself, welcomed people to the board. I'll just go through what's in the file, and then I'll ask the applicant to make a presentation. We've got in the board's file the application on the board standard form, as I indicated, of Gregory and Diane Connor, indicating the relief that's being sought, consistent with the advertisement. Got a letter from Mr. Atchu, the town's building commissioner, to Attorney McKettrick, indicating the denial of a request for a building permit and indicating that relief could be sought, which is being sought. We've got a letter from Mrs. McKettrick, Attorney McKettrick, dated March 18, 2024, explaining the relief. I'll let her speak to that as part of her application. I won't read it, but it's a page and a half long, and I'm sure that council will discuss that letter in the application, the presentation of the application. We also have a proposed addition plan for the property at the intersection of Stoddard Lane and Center Lane, prepared by CCR Associates. The plan is dated January 12, 2024. It shows the proposed addition and shows the distance of the addition of the existing dwelling, the garage, the proposed addition to the property lines, along with the names of the abutters. We've got a plan indicating the illustrations of the proposed addition in section and in plan, and we've got a copy of the deed into Gregory Connor and Diane Connor, recorded at Norfolk Registry of Deeds, dated June 15, 2005, along with the plan indicated on the deed, and then some information from the property card records of the town of Milton. That is the entirety of the board's file and the materials that the board members have been provided to prepare for this hearing. I see the applicant with his counsel is here, and welcome them to the Board of Appeals and invite them to make a presentation. How can we assist you tonight?
Thank you very much, Mary.
You're welcome.
Represent the applicants. And
You've got an echo, Marion. There's some little echo.
is it still happening?
That's better. Yeah.
I don't know why that was. Nothing. Okay. So this is an application for a variance. It's to allow a one-story addition to the rear of the home at 4 Stoddard Lane. And the addition is proposed to be at a setback of 9.6 feet rather than the required 20.1 feet. This is a rectangular lot, and the house is aligned the long way along the rectangle, which leaves relatively little rear yard. The rear yard setback for the house is just slightly over the required setback. The residence was constructed in 1954. It's on a conforming rectangular lot. It's only 7,500 square feet. This is a Residence C district. However, the proposed addition is it's a rather small addition, 260 square feet, 14.58 feet by 19.5 feet. It will be 1 story in height and have a cathedral ceiling. And contained within the addition, there'll be a half bath, a pantry, and then an open room that's proposed to be used as a media room. So this house, actually, I remember this house from a number of years ago, and I believe the applicants have done some improvements. I think they added, they can explain that better than I can, but since they moved into the house, they've improved, I think, some of the interior areas of the house. There really isn't any space to add a conforming addition in any direction on this lot because it's a corner lot. There has to be a 20-foot setback on each of the street sides. And as I already explained, the rear setback for the house is already just pretty much at the setback, the required setback. The house to date has been improved. It's very attractive. It fits in with the neighborhood. The addition is rather small but nicely designed. There is an existing rear pergola, and that's going to be removed if the addition is constructed. The architectural plan by JSG Architecture shows that the addition will have a peaked roof, which is at a similar angle to the garage end of the existing house. There will be no windows to the rear of the addition. There will be 1 window on one side and a door to the yard on the other side. And the finishes on the addition will match the existing house. The combination of the corner lot and the unusual shape of this lot really limit the ability of the family to add on to this home anymore, really, than the footprint that exists. I'm going to ask them to report on their contact with neighbors, but I know that they have discussed this proposal with their neighbors. We feel that this application proposes a modest 1-story addition. It will be an inconspicuous addition, but nicely designed to fit in with the existing structure. The family will benefit from the additional living space. They've been in this house for a long time, and at this point, they're looking for additional family living space. Certainly, the proposed use makes sense. And then having the additional half bath and the little bit of pantry space in the back of the kitchen will also be very helpful and useful. So I wonder if Greg Connor is here. Did you want to add some remarks, and would you just report to us on what your contact with neighbors has been?
Certainly. Thank you very much for having me. And I can tell you that the reason we're doing this is because we love the neighborhood we're in. We moved here in 2005, and we did a renovation to the home in 2018, in which we took what was a cape with about 1,200 square feet and took down the breezeway and garage, added a 2-car garage, and then put a living space above that. And we're able then to increase the living space throughout the second floor of the house. So that was done in about 2018, and we used the same architect to design the addition that we used for our renovation so that it would look the same. What we did as far as contacting our abutters is on January 15th, January 16th, I went in person to the Funling residence at 39 Sias. I went to the Ast residence at 10 Stoddard Lane, and I went to the Norton residence at 42 Center Lane. And I presented each of them the plot plan and the proposed architectural drawings. Eric asked, immediately said he had no problems with it and wished me the best of luck. Jay Fundling the next day texted me at 8:20 a.m. saying that they had no problems with it. And Andy Norton and his wife spoke to me the following week and said that they had no problems with it. Andy Norton and I have talked numerous times about the addition, and talked about the potential of natural fencing between the two properties. Currently, right now, we have a white picket fence, but I've talked about the idea of putting arborvitaes in between. In addition, he's putting a tree on his side that he's replanting that had fallen down. But not one neighbor has had any objection to this, and all have been enthusiastic for it. And so the reason we're doing it is to give us a place, or actually to give our kids a place to socialize and entertain their friends. What we have right now is we have a living room that is an open space, but it's open to the kitchen. And when my two teenage girls have their friends over, I find they're socializing in their bedrooms and not in the living space downstairs. And that becomes problematic because there's only so many kids who can fit in a bedroom at a given time. And so we thought that this would be a more inviting area to have friends over. We had previously tried to turn our basement into a den, and we get flooding regularly. Those Milton residents who can remember back before 1954, this area was a pond, and so we're below the water table, and so water is kind of a problem for all the neighbors here. And so a basement is really problematic. We do have pumps, but I'm still dealing with water in the basement right now. So this seems like the best opportunity we have to give our kids the place to have friends over, socialize, and be a part of the whole house, and also keep this addition in character with the house we have and the neighborhood. And so that's what we've done, and that's why we're here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Mr. McKettrick, is that complete your presentation?
It does. We'd be happy to answer questions, though.
Thank you. Let me ask members of my colleagues if they've got any questions. Mr. Brown,
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Gray.
Neither do I.
Let me ask you, Attorney McKettrick or Mr. Connor, when you performed the work to modify the property in 2018, did that require any relief from the board?
No, it did not. What we had done was we adjusted our plan so that we would not violate any setbacks. So if you notice the plot plan, you'll see that the garage is about 2 feet in from the back of the house. And so that was because of the corner lot. We really don't have a rear lot. That would prevent us from violating any setbacks. So we did not seek a relief at that point in time.
Yeah. With respect to the arrangement you've made with Mr. Norton, would you say that that's a certainty, or is that just an idea? You share that with the board, but it's not part of the application. Are you committing to that tonight?
As far as the natural fencing?
Yeah.
Well, we're open to ideas. He is planting a tree, I believe next week. And we did, if you see circles in the architectural drawings, those are proposed arborvitaes at the edge of the fence line, which were included that I gave to Mr. Norton.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to withdraw the question. I'll tell you why. Because if the board does decide to grant the relief, you'd be required to conduct the improvements as shown on the plans that you've been provided to us. The plans show the scale, they show the screening.
Yes.
So I would say you should prepare to do an installation of landscaping product consistent with the drawings, because that's what we've got in front of us.
That's what we'd like to do.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me ask you, what's your timing for the improvements?
We don't have one right now because we wanted to wait to hear from you. The contractor I used to do my house is doing 2 projects on Meredith Circle this summer. So he might be able to squeeze us in where his teams are working on the street next door. But we haven't committed to him yet. He is the contractor I wish to use, John Lehman. But I wanted to wait to see what the board said.
Be required to make the improvements within 1 year, the granting of the relief. So you want to be mindful of that you should, depending upon what the board does tonight, you may be on the clock. So that's why I
Yes.
asked the question.
I appreciate that.
If you do the improvements, and I were to look at the house in a year's time, would it look like one house, or would it look like one house with a small addition? Is it all going to be finished in the same way, the same roof, the same color?
Yes.
To the average person, they would assume that that's how the house was built.
So my wife is adamant that it would be the same looking house. And so we currently right now have fiberglass shingling on the side of the house. We would extend that same color and shingling. We would have the same roof and shingles that we have on our current roof. And that's one of the benefits of working with the same architect and the same contractor, is that we have all of this on file.
Yeah. So the answer is, I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Let me ask before I ask the audience if they've got any questions. Do my board members have any questions before we move to other folks? Okay.
No.
Let me ask if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in support of the application. Bill, can you see if there's anybody? I can't even tell if there's anybody else on the call, so I just don't know.
There appear to be 8.
I see no hands thus far. We have 2 other people on the
Okay.
call, but no one is stepping forward.
All right, well, let me make sure people know what I'm asking. If there's anybody out there who wishes to speak in support of the application at 4 Stoddard Lane, just identify yourselves. All right, seeing none, Bill. Oh,
So far, none. No.
wait a minute. We have two new people have showed.
Yep, and they have not responded.
Okay. So I see Mr. Donahue, Ms. Carroll. All right, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the application at 4 Stoddard Lane? Okay, hearing none. All right, so I think we've heard the evidence and we've had the opportunity to ask questions. We've asked the audience if they've got comments, questions, support, opposition to the application. So we've completed the evidentiary portion of the hearing. I'd like to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and move to a deliberation of the application in accordance with the open meeting law. And I'll do that here and now. Let me ask Mr. Gray if he wishes to share his thoughts on the application with members of the board.
Thanks, Mr. Mullen. Happy to do so. I think this sounds like a great project. It's from looking at the plans, I was going to say small and tasteful. But an addition that fits in, given the characteristics of that neighborhood and that particular lot, and living on a corner lot as well. I understand the additional challenges that produces. So I think that you've demonstrated the need for the addition. I think it's likely to be an improvement to the neighborhood. The relief requested, I don't think, will be detrimental to the, out of character for that particular neighborhood. And so with, having, since you've spoken to your immediate abutters and they reported to us that no one is objecting to that and no one has shown up at the hearing tonight raising any additional issues, I would be in favor of supporting the granting of the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Yes, I'd like to echo everything that Mr. Gray just said. My one concern, having reviewed the application earlier today, was what do the neighbors think? But Mr. Connor has allayed those concerns. And so I think that this is going to be good for the applicant, good for the neighborhood, and I'd be in favor of supporting the variance.
I'm gonna agree with my colleagues. I don't have much more to add. Well presented. Thank you for coming to the board. I too like the application. I like the design in particular, and I like what you've done. And on the condition that the improvements be constructed consistent with the application, including the plan that's been submitted, I too vote in favor of the variance. Let me ask for a vote of my colleagues, all in favor of the variance in front of us for 4 Stoddard Lane. Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Connor and Attorney McKettrick, congratulations. You've been granted a variance from the Milton Board of Appeals. There's a 20-day appeal period. The members will prepare a simple decision, get that to get that to Bill for filing. It'll be filed with the town clerk. There'll be a 20-day appeal period, and then we'll ask that you record the variance at the Norfolk Registry of Deeds. And then you please work with Bill on the coordination of all of that. Remember that you've got the 1-year period to be mindful of, and coordinate your activities with the appropriate town officials, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you all. Thank you very much for your time.
You're
Would you
welcome.
like me to draft a decision, or are you all set on that?
I think that would be a great offer if you could do that, Marion, and maybe get that to Bill, and Bill can share it with us, and we'll take a look at it.
Okay, be happy to do that.
Thank you.
you.
I mean, my members
Marion.
don't have any objection, do you?
No, thank you, Marion.
No,
I
I
know Nick
don't.
probably had it almost finished. He's not.
It's
No.
in my head, but I'm happy to receive Attorney McKettrick's stellar draft.
Thank you.
I'll get it
Thank
back to you
for doing
quickly. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
so
you
with
all.
that, we'll adjourn the 7 o'clock hearing. There is another hearing at 7:45. The board will be in recess until 7:45, and we'll tune in again, and we'll consider the application for 1200 Brush Hill Road. Thank you very much.
you.
Temporary adjournment.
Thank you. Nice to see you
Thank
both.
you.
Evening.
Mr. Donnelly, we all set?
We are all set.
Okay, all right. We're gonna call to order the 7:45 hearing of the Milton Board of Appeals. Today is Wednesday, May 1st. My name is Jeffrey Mullen. With me serving as members tonight are Mr. Nicholas Gray and Mr. Michael Brown, both members of the board. I'll be acting as chairman of the board in the place of Mr. John Leonard, chairman of the board. This tonight's application is submitted by Bravo MA2 LLC by their attorney Ned Corcoran, who's with us tonight, concerning the property at 1200 Brush Hill Road, dated May 25 to 2024, seeking variances to build a 3-story addition to the right side of the existing building. The property is located in a residence AA zoning district. The addition will increase the total number of beds from 160 to 172, which intensifies the use of the building per Article 3, 275-3 of the Milton zoning bylaw, and requires an amendment to the original use variance granted on June 24, 1980. The proposed addition's height is designed at 38 feet, when 35 feet are normally required per Article 9, 275-9.1 of the bylaw. And the proposed addition has a lot coverage of 13% and a gross floor area of 31%, when the maximum for coverage is normally 10%, and the maximum for gross floor area is normally 20% per Article 10, 275-10.5 of the bylaw. All of that is set forth in the application and plans on file with the board and open to public inspection. Let me, before we turn this over to the applicant and their attorney, who I see are with us, I want to let people know that what we have. The board has in its file a letter from the building commissioner dated March 21, 2024, consistent with the advertisement that I just read, to address to Mr. Corcoran concerning 1200 Brush Hill Road, and indicating that the relief is required for the building permit that was submitted, and the building permit was therefore denied. Mr. Corcoran then, on March 25, 2024, submitted an appropriate application to the board, which has resulted in this hearing. Thank you for that. We've got in our files a set of drawings showing the proposed addition for the Brush Hill Care Center by Gershon
Gershon.
Klein? Yeah, Gershon.
Gershon.
A plot plan of the property, along with some plans, elevations in 5 sheets that have been submitted. Mr. Corcoran also was kind enough to give to us a copy of the board's May 13, 1980 use variance, which was referred to in the application, and we thank him for that. We also have a copy of the variance as recorded at the registry, and we have an addendum to the application that was submitted earlier, and it was revised to indicate a slight modification in the gross floor area. So we thank Mr. Corcoran for both that submittal and for calling it to our attention. That's the contents of the board's file. I see that Mr. Corcoran and his client are with us, and how may we help you tonight, Mr. Corcoran?
Well, thank you, members of the board, for the opportunity to be back in front of you. I am joined by Gershon Klein, who is the president of Bravo Mass 2 LLC and is the operator of the Brush Hill Care Center, a 160-bed nursing home at 1200 Brush Hill Road. I'm also joined by Brian Donahue Architects, who is the architect, and he will go through the plans in more specificity. At first, I thought I would do a brief background overview of the history of the property. Property was originally a seminary operated by the Archdiocese of Boston with 147 beds. It opened in approximately 1950. That use was exempt from zoning as a religious use, and the building that was developed was substantially as it exists today, with the exception of some infill that was authorized by the variance that was granted. There was combination variances granted in 1980 and again in 1981. When the seminary closed, it held 147 beds, and the variance that was granted in 1981 authorized an increase to 160. Mr. Tom Flatley had purchased the property from the Archdiocese, and he pursued the development of the nursing home starting in 1980. He filed the initial application for variance, which was required. He needed to show that he had authority to operate the nursing home in order to file for a certificate of need with the Department of Public Health. He did that in 1981, and following the granting of the certificate of need, he refiled with the Board of Appeals as was required by the 1980 variance, and that variance was approved in 1981. We more recently filed, Mr. Klein and Bravo Mass 2 LLC purchased the property from subsequent owner in 2016, and he has been investing in the property since. In January of 22, we went before this board requesting a variance to allow outpatient kidney dialysis treatment to be performed in an area to be developed in the basement level of the facility. That variance was granted, although because of issues that have arisen relative to this variance, Mr. Klein did not pursue a building permit, and that variance has lapsed. We'll probably pursue that again at a later date, but in the meantime, we're here before you tonight. This variance rises from changes to regulations dealing with nursing homes that came out of COVID. and that require what they call a densification of units. Some of the rooms in this facility were triples and quads. The regulations were modified to say you could have no more than 2 in a unit, and there was a separation of 6 feet required. So that de-densification was going to cause the loss of 16 beds, and needed to be, the facility needed to sort of be restructured as a result. Mr. Donahue developed a plan to add, we think is a fairly minor addition relative to the scale of the building, and seeking to add an additional 12 beds to get to 172, in part to pay for the cost of de-densification and the work. I filed an amendment, a red line version of the addendum that I filed with the application to correct one item that was the the proposed floor area. I had in error had 78,000 and change. It is the proposed floor area is actually 74,800 square feet. That the application would then reduce the percentage gross floor area to 29%. The building currently is non-conforming relative to lot coverage and floor area. The maximum lot coverage is 10%. It's currently at 12%, and the maximum floor area ratio is 20%. It's currently at 29%. So the increases are 1% increase in lot coverage and 2% increase in gross floor area relative to the scale of the building. We think is very is minor. We did meet recently with Molly Welch, who is the new executive director at Fuller Village. Fuller Village is the only abutter other than the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the town, which owns the Flatley Field. And we had a very favorable meeting with Ms. Welch. She understood the change in the regulation, and she understood the need for the project as proposed, and she wholeheartedly endorsed it in our meeting. I don't expect that she will be here tonight. I don't have anything written to add to the record, but I can represent that we did have a favorable meeting with her. And so with that, I can hand it off to Brian Donahue, who can walk you through plans and explain a little bit greater detail what the de-densification process is all about and what's happening with respect to the regulations.
Mr. Donahue.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
There we go. Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks, Ned.
Is it possible for us to see you?
Certainly. I'm just not seeing on the Zoom screen a video tag to.
The bottom level.
Are you in full screen mode?
You'll find it probably on the bottom left. There's a mic mute and a start and stop video option.
I see the mute, but oh. I'm not seeing.
Are you in full screen view?
I am.
Okay.
I don't know why there's no.
I don't have, this is Gershon. I don't have the video feature either on my screen.
Okay, why don't you proceed?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and my name is Brian Donahue, architect. My office is in Quincy. I have a fair amount of history working in the skilled nursing field for the past 20 years or so for a particular client, and we used to renovate and upgrade the facilities that he would purchase and operate. And obviously, the world changed in 2020, and COVID had a really dramatic effect on the nursing home industry and skilled nursing as a whole. As you can imagine, if if you read the papers during that period, there were a lot of deaths in nursing homes and a lot of problems with and viruses spreading and infestations, and just it was a real eye opener at that point in time. So the Department of Public Health, in its wisdom, basically rewrote the regulations for skilled nursing facilities and other facilities and hospitals as well. And before 2020 and before the 2021 regulation changes, you could have up to 4 residents in a room. The separation between the beds was 3 feet was the only real requirement. If you had 4 or 3 or 2, in any case, you had to have 3 feet between the beds, privacy curtains, the whole thing. So as a result of the regulations being rewritten, the de-densification mandate was put out to all operators in the state and Commonwealth. And what it did was if you were doing any renovation or significant upgrade or a change in the configuration of your facility, you could not, for a certain period of time, have more than 2 beds in a room. And now the spacing between the beds had to be 6 feet. So you can imagine existing facilities found this overwhelming because it wasn't physically possible within the footprint of their facility. So we either have to lose the beds, find other areas in the facility to make up the loss that this mandate was requiring, or do something similar to what we're proposing here tonight, which would be a small addition, which would help us with that de-densification process. So if you had a nursing unit with all 2 bedrooms and you weren't doing anything or touching them, you weren't required to make that separation, because there just isn't really physically enough room in a typical patient room to do something like that. So there was some give and take. There's still, believe it or not, to this day, litigation in place that against the state for some facilities that are trying to fight this mandate. What they've had to do is at least show good faith that they're trying to accommodate the new law. So it is a real upheaval in the industry, and I've known Gershon from before COVID, and we had done some small renovations to Brush Hill in the past. We had worked with him redesigning a rehab gym. Briefly worked on the dialysis center in the lower level of the facility, and then we looked at the de-densification, and we came up with a new plan which included the addition. As Ned mentioned, there were between the 3-bedded rooms and the 4-bedded rooms, there are actually 4 quads in this facility. We had to reposition them so there were no more than 2 beds, and as the state has emphasized very clearly, they would like as many privates as possible, because the opportunity for problems to arise with a single bedroom are a lot less even with a shared room. So I don't know if it's possible for you to let me share my screen. I think I have an abbreviated version of Zoom, to be honest with you. So I hope I can get my screen up there, because it's right now I can't show my face, which is probably fine, but I would like to show you the drawings.
Please.
Ned, you're muted.
Right. Sorry. I can share. Brian, why don't you go ahead and do that if you can. If not, I can share the screen and bring the same plans up. But probably easier if you are in control.
I don't see even the share button here. Sorry. Wouldn't the host have to allow me to?
I'm looking, yeah, it says multiple participants can share simultaneously right now, so.
I'm able to do it right now. I can start with, which would you like me to start with?
Brian, I was able to get the video working. If you hit the panelist again, it might allow you. If they sent you a re-invite, try hitting the panelist button again. Might get you all the features on the bottom.
You should have those privileges now, again.
There you go.
All right, if everyone can see my screen, the recent survey performed by DeSalle Burke is up, and you can see the limit. You can see the limit in the property lines. This is actually just the meets and bounds and footprint survey showing setbacks for the existing building and the proposed addition, which we have going on the end of A wing. So we're way with it. Extremely within the setback requirements of this particular zone. Obviously, the floor area ratio and the lot coverage are the issues that are bringing us here tonight. So this basically gives you an overview of the footprint of the building. This next shot is a more detailed site plan, which was put together years ago, and this shows the proposed expansion. So you can see that it really doesn't impact any of our parking and circulation around the building. It shows the entry off the Ponce Valley, Brush Hill, existing parking areas, and the building itself in the middle. So presently we have 4 nursing units in the building of varying sizes, totaling 160 beds. This is the first level plan. So as you can see, the entryway in the front is office space, dining room space, kitchen, and the rehab gym over here, which just completed its renovation, and the first nursing unit. So you can see the configuration. We had this, which is a proposed day room, which is a sitting room. What is the 4-bedded room on each level? These identical layouts for wing A on 3 floors. We had 3-bedded rooms over here, which we're renovating into 2. In this addition of 1,590, basically 1,600 square feet, shows our a new configuration. So we have some limitations on where we can put these things. The nurse's station is here in the middle. We can't have a bed that's 100 feet or more away from the nursing station. So it limits where we can put these additions. And if you start putting in nursing substations, it gets into staffing issues and it becomes debilitating in the financial end. So this shows basically the footprint of what we're proposing on each level. The second level, there's a nursing unit over here. This is the B and C wing. We're adding some beds. We're de-densifying the beds the same on this wing, becoming a day room. There's a couple of 3-bedded rooms over here, which we're turning into 2. So when you look at the facility as a whole, this is the top floor of A wing. So if you look at the facility as a whole, we have 160 beds. Now, another reason why the wish is to add 12 beds to the total is that the department also grants facility owners a 12-bed exemption. And the 12-bed exemption is a simplification of adding to a facility because they have a process of what they call determination of need, which is very lengthy and very expensive. But they give all facilities, if you haven't taken advantage of it, a 12-bed exemption to add on to your facility. So that while we were doing this kind of renovation and addition, in parallel with that, we were hoping to get that approved by the state. So in parallel, again, with what we're doing here tonight, we have to submit this to the Department of Public Health to get their approval before we can turn this into a real project and construction drawings and coming to the town for building permits if we're fortunate enough to get your approval. Again, you know, this is, if you remember any building done by the Archdiocese in the 50s and 60s, it's that beige brick, which is what we have here. This is an elevation of our addition, the darker brick. So we'll be matching that window configuration. This is certainly not going to win any architectural design awards, but we want to keep it compatible with the existing building, and it's very simple in its nature, and we just wanted to make like it was always there. One thing that that Ned mentioned was the height. So if we brought this down to 35 feet, we would certainly have a headroom problem in this top nursing unit here.
The current zoning allows, if you're more than 15 feet, more than 15 feet additional setbacks, you're allowed 3 stories under the zoning. But it's still a max of 35 feet. The current height of the building is actually taller than 35 feet, than 38 feet. And so we're matching really the existing wing with respect to height.
So these are just a couple of massing models which show how the new addition will interface with the existing building, how it relates to it in scale and in design. So we're thinking this is a rather benign addition to the building, and as it impacts the overall site and facility and any neighborhood views. When we met with Molly over at Fuller Village, she showed us some pictures where she could see, and there is a view of this, and we showed her all these documents, and she didn't seem to have any issues with it. So I think in general, that's our history and a proposal for the building. And if any members of the board have any specific questions on the architecture, the layout, or the reasoning, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Mr. Corcoran, is there anything else you'd like to share with the board?
No, I think that's it. You know, it's a pre-existing large structure. It was added to pursuant to a variance granted in 1980 by Mr. Flatley. And this is, we think, a minor addition. We request the board's approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask members of the board, my colleagues, if they've got any questions. Mr. Brown.
Excuse me, I don't have any questions at the moment.
Mr. Gray.
What's the additional staff required for 12 additional beds?
Gershon, do you want to answer that?
I would defer to Gershon, but we're the unit count. At the end of the day, we will have 4 43-bed units, and the current nurse station and staffing will accommodate that. Unless Gershon tells me otherwise, I think that this is the hope here is that it wouldn't create any substations or additional staffing. But I would let Gershon answer that question.
Gershon, you're muted.
It would require what's called an additional certified nursing assistant per unit for the additional 3 beds that you add to the unit.
So 3 additional staff.
4. Each unit would have, so 4 additional staff. Each unit would require 1 additional person, most likely.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have.
Mr. Donahue indicated that you wanted to make the addition look like it was always there, but the idea is that the brick will be a slightly different color, so it will look like an addition. Is that not true?
Well, to be honest with you, we've already had a representative from Consolidated Brick out there, and we've got pretty much a perfect match with what's there. So that would be the wish that we.
So the different color that you're showing on the drawing and on this rendering is just to highlight it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I just wanted to make sure that it was very clear what the addition was as opposed to the existing.
so it will appear to the average person that this relatively modest addition of a fairly large building was always built with this slight bump out to the south. Is that right?
That's the intent for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What is the occupancy? What is the occupancy of the facility today? Is it full?
We're around 90% right now. It goes up and down, obviously.
But even though it goes up and down, is it a busy place? And do you expect that these beds, I know that they're being required by the regulators, but is it your expectation that these beds will be filled fairly quickly within the range of the kinds of vacancies you see and how businesses like this work?
It's seasonal, but we hope they will be full, pretty quickly, yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. My colleagues have any further questions?
No.
Okay, let me ask if there's anybody in the audience that is joining us today. Why don't we put the screen down? Stop sharing. And see if there's anybody in the audience who would like to be heard in support of the application for relief at 1200 Brush Hill Road. Hearing none, let me ask if there's anybody who'd like to speak in opposition to the request for relief at 1200 Brush Hill Road, consistent with the application.
I don't see any hands.
Thank you. Okay, so we've heard testimony from the applicant. I've had an opportunity to question him. Thank you for that. We've requested support and opposition. We've heard none. So we've concluded the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Why don't we move to the deliberative process, and we'll debate the merits of the application in accordance with the open meeting law. Just for clarification purposes, consistent with the addendum that Mr. Corcoran was kind enough to give to us, the relief, to be clear, is an amendment to the use variance dated April 1981 to increase the maximum number of beds from 160 to 172. That's number one. Number two, a variance from the maximum height restriction of 35 feet to 38 feet within the area that we're talking about. Not universally, but within the area we're talking about. And the last issue is the request for variance from maximum lot coverage from 10% to 13%, and maximum floor area from 20% to 31%. All as consistent with the application. I just want to make sure that everybody understood what we were about to deliberate.
If I would just
Mr. Corcoran.
Sorry, it's with the amendment that I filed today, it's the gross floor area would be 29%.
29.
The variance is from the maximum allowed under the bylaw, which would be 10%, allowing 13% in lot coverage, and 20% max allowing 29%.
I'm sorry, that's what you wrote. That's what you wrote.
Right.
Maximum lot coverage from 10% to 13%, maximum floor area from 29%.
From 20%, which is the max allowed under the
20.
bylaw, to 29%.
To 29. Fair enough. Okay.
Understanding that they currently are at 12% and 27% based on existing conditions.
Right. Okay. Mr. Brown, would you like to be heard?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mullen. I think that the application presents an addition to this building that will not have an impact on the surrounding neighborhood. I'm receptive to the reasoning that the applicant has given for the addition, and I'm generally in favor of it.
Thank you. Mr. Gray.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Brown's comments. I think that regardless of whether or not the state were requiring the additional de-densification, certainly as a humane matter, it certainly would feel better to be in a unit that had fewer 4 people to a room. And I think if we can get it down to 2 people a room, that sounds like a benefit to the town and certainly to the residents of the facility. I agree with Attorney Brown that the additional certainly the height, as Attorney Corcoran said, that making the height 38 feet just matches the existing abutting building. So I don't see much of a problem with the impact of that, and the increase in the height. The lot coverage and the floor area ratio seem fairly de minimis to me, if that's an appropriate phrase. So I would, at this point, would be in favor of supporting the granting of the 3 or 4 variances, depending on if number 3 is 2 or 1.
We're gonna treat it like one number for
Like
two.
one big
variants.
variance?
One
Yeah.
modest sized variance covering two issues, two distinct.
Got it.
issues. One of the reasons I wanted to clarify that is there were two in that one. Thank you, Mr. Gray. I agree with my colleagues. I'm going to support I like the building. I like the need. I'm sympathetic to the need. It's a somewhat unfortunate, but it sounds like a good improvement and a good solution to a tricky problem. So I congratulate the applicant for thinking about this. I like the location of where it is vis-a-vis the rest of the building. And I appreciate the fact that you reached out to your closest abutters and we're sensitive to their needs. So all of that, congratulations on that. And I too will support the request for the amendment, for the variance for the height, for the variance for the lot coverage, for the variance for the floor area ratio, enthusiastically, and I wish you a lot of luck. Let me ask the applicant if these improvements are proposed to be done within 1 year's time.
I think, Brian, when would you expect to be ready to pull a building permit?
Well, there's probably a 2-month process with the state going through the review again. Hopefully it'll be shorter than that. So I would say that it would be probably a late summer. And the beauty of this project, I don't want to belabor the point, is that the interior renovations can be done much sooner, and the addition is made while the addition is being built, and it doesn't really interface with each other until the very end. So we can build the addition while doing interior renovations. So the short answer is we hope to be starting this in the late summer.
Okay. All right. So you've got your variance as requested. There's a 20-day appeal period. The board will, as Mr. Corcoran is prepared to prepare a draft for the board's consideration,
Absolutely.
which we would appreciate. You'll have a 20-day appeal period. You'll work with the board's clerk on getting that to board members. The board members will review it, will execute it. You'll record it.
There's a glitch.
Jeff is glitching.
Mr. Mullen is frozen. It's not just me this time.
That's an unusual circumstance too.
Mid sentence. If necessary, I can go down the street with my phone and knock on his door.
Complete this. I'll be looking for him to re-enter.
Funny, when we met with Molly Welch and her assistants, they referred to the color brick as Catholic yellow.
We're very familiar with the color.
Yes. All of the Catholic schools.
It's a classic of the period.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to understand that it's still available, should the need arise.
Right.
All right, pulling Jeff back into the meeting.
Sorry about that. I ran out of power there. Let me, what I was going to say is, get us the variance. You'll have a 20-day appeal period. Then you have a 1-year period to execute on the variance, which is why I asked the question about the schedule. But otherwise, we appreciate your appearing before the board. We wish you best of luck with your project, and we look forward to receiving the draft of the instrument from Mr. Corcoran. And unless there's further business, I'm prepared to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming
everybody.
to the Board of Appeals. Meeting adjourned.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, gentlemen. Take care.
You're
Good night.
welcome. Good luck to you. Good night now.